Super Mario RPG. I've never played the game, but I've been very interested in it. It looks like a fun game. I know a lot of people talk exceptionally highly about this game. It is, from what I've seen and from what I've heard people talk about it, it is one of the best retro RPGs out there. Now, Nintendo fans do generally tend to think that their stuff is better than it is sometimes, I will fully admit. But across the board, I've heard nothing but positive things about Super Mario RPG. Let's take a look at this article. 27 years after the original title wowed audiences on the Super Nintendo, the 1996 classic game Super Mario RPG is finally getting a full remake on the Nintendo Switch. More than branching out of the Super Mario franchise, effectively into RPG gameplay genre, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, as it was fully titled, is one of the best turn-based RPGs on one of the best consoles for RPGs ever released. Debuting 3 months after the launch of its Nintendo 64, Super Mario RPG does feel like the perfect, if sometimes bittersweet, swan song to the entire SNES RPG era. Here's how Super Mario RPG came to be, and how the game closed out not just Nintendo's SNES era, but the SNES, we use SNES, the SNES's place as a premier console experience for RPGs. The golden age of Nintendo RPGs. Square really hit its stride as a game developer on the SNES before, I gotta say SNES, sorry guys, I don't remember where I heard it, but my brain just says that every time. Super Nintendo, right? SNES. Its eventual merge with Enix in 2003 to perform Square Enix. For Nintendo during the 16-bit era alone, Square developed Final Fantasy, whatever those numbers are, for the Super Famicom, with Final Fantasy IV and VI being released for the SNES in the North America as Final Fantasy 2 and 3 respectively, specifically for the North American market. Square also developed 1992's Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which provided a more accessible RPG experience. Beyond Final Fantasy, Square developed 1995's Chrono Trigger and 1993's Secret of Mana, with each title kickstarting their own respective franchises, albeit on the PlayStation consoles. Though not quite as prolific as Square on the SNES, the Enix would continue its successful Dragon Quest franchise in the Super Famicom, while publishing the well-received action RPG Illusion of Gaia and Actraiser for the Super Nintendo. Even Nintendo itself would get in on the RPG market, publishing Earthbound, the standalone sequel to Mother in 1994. Though other contemporary consoles had their own RPG releases, like Phantasy Star on Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. No, let me reread that. Though other contemporary consoles had their own RPG releases, like Phantasy Star on Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo really was the undisputed king of the RPG genre during its entire life cycle. Super Mario RPG expanded the SNES dominance further, providing cross-market appeal with its presentation and brand awareness. It was a rare kind of dream project between two companies at the top of the world. However, its origin story is much more humble than all of that. The origins of Super Mario RPG. Though Square's early days are often celebrated, the truth of the company's early legacy is slightly more complicated. Early on, Square largely developed RPG titles that were well received critically and performed well commercially in Japan, but never quite found the same level of popularity in overseas markets. Titles universally acclaimed, such as Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy 7, sold over 2 million copies in Japan, but failed to sell 1 million copies in the North American market. It wouldn't be 7 then. It would be 6. I'm sorry guys, I don't know. You can have the VI. There you go. Towards the end of the SNES run, though, Super Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto was struck by a desire to work directly with Square and create an RPG title starring Nintendo's flagship character. An already appealing opportunity was made irresistible due to Square's interest in creating a game that would better appeal to international audiences. Those shared interests would later become Super Mario RPG. Though Square was looking for a hit at the time, they and Nintendo agreed early on this project needed to be more than a mutually beneficial agreement. It needed to be something special and different. Here's what Super Mario RPG co-director Chihiro Fujioka had to say about the origins of the project's ambitious philosophy. The main concern for all involved was that we didn't want to make a normal RPG that simply substituted in Mario characters, like some cheap Final Fantasy sprite swap. And yet, the basic core of the game was Mario. I mean, the title has RPG in it, so we knew that much. But should it be an action RPG, a turn-based RPG, or something else? Our answer was, it's a Mario RPG, which means an RPG featuring things that only Mario can do. Jumping, dashing, and so forth. That led to a variety of experiments. Early plans for Super Mario RPG had the project as more of an action RPG, rather than a turn-based one, but this changed by 1995 to the battle system present in the final game. Given the success of 1994's Donkey Kong Country, which employed a pre-rendered 3D art style that pushes SNES hardware's technical capabilities, Super Mario RPG also took on a similar art style. To help facilitate this, Super Mario RPG cartridges were fitted with the Nintendo SA1 chip, a microprocessor embedded within the cartridge that boosted its processing and memory power. The joys of Super Mario RPG. Aside from its presentation and battle system, Super Mario RPG started out like any other classic Super Mario game, as Mario raids Bowser's castle to rescue Princess Toadstool. This routine confrontation is quickly upended when Exer, a giant living sword, crashes through Star Road and Bowser's castle, sending everyone at the scene flying in different parts of the Mushroom Kingdom and its surrounding regions. In the confusion, the Smithy Gang, a group of villains led by the mechanical Smithy, invades the Mushroom Kingdom. Mario scrambles to collect fragments from Star Road, reunite with Princess Toadstool, and defeat Smithy. Ooh, this is a big article. We're going to keep going. Even with its unique Wow, this is difficult. Even with its unique gameplay style, Super Mario RPG very much feels like a natural expansion of the franchise, with a deeper look at the culture between the Yoshis and the lore behind Star Road. Two prominent concepts introduced in Super Mario World, which kicked off the SNES era in 1990. But the Super Mario RPG takes the time to create effective new elements, from fan-favorite allies Mallow, a living cloud, and Geno, an animated doll, to environments like Monstro Town and Nimbus Land. These new elements feel as organic to the Super Mario franchise as they are memorable, brought to life with the same family-friendly art style and quirky sense of humor. Like many contemporary RPGs, Super Mario RPG has a turn-based combat system, but reflecting its initial plans as an action RPG, there are timed action commands to enhance other attacks and other techniques. This makes the combat seem much more engaging than any other more passive turn-based RPGs on the SNES. While the game boasts up to 5 playable characters, each with their own special abilities, in the fun twist on the mythos, Super Mario RPG is also the first time Mario and Bowser work together against a common foe and represents the first playable appearance of Bowser beyond 1992's Super Mario Kart. With its pre-rendered animation style, vibrant sound design, and newly introduced corners of the Super Mario universe, Super Mario RPG provided a unique and fresh experience for the franchise, and one that wouldn't be replicated until the upcoming remake. Even more than just standing impressively is one of the best RPG titles on the SNES amidst a stacked field. Super Mario RPG marks the end of Nintendo's focus on the SNES moving forward. Composer Yoko oh my god, I'm butchering his names. Composer Yoko Shimomura, who previously composed the soundtracks of Street Fighter II, The World Warrior, and the acclaimed SNES RPG Breath of Fire, pushed the sound capabilities of the console as far as it could go for Super Mario RPG, providing it with a soundtrack that was as varied as it was memorable. Shimomura would initially incorporate Koji Kondo's iconic Super Mario music into the score, as well as tracks from Square's own Final Fantasy, to underscore Super Mario RPG's place as a serious RPG. The meticulous strategy and production paid off handsomely for Nintendo, with Super Mario RPG selling nearly 1.5 million copies in Japan alone, making it the third best-selling game in the country in 1996. In North America, Super Mario RPG exceeded Nintendo's expectations and became the 6th best-selling game in the United States. In 1996, surpassed only by Super Mario 64, the Donkey Kong Country sequel, Wave Race 64, Madden 97 on the PlayStation. The game wasn't entirely beaten by next-gen efforts though. Super Mario RPG even outsold the original Resident Evil, the original Crash Bandicoot, and Star Wars Shadow of the Empire that year. Despite facing healthy competition from Sega at the start of the decade, the SNES cemented Nintendo as the leader of the international gaming industry, avoiding pitfalls Atari suffered in the 80s when they tried to follow up on the success of its hit console, the Atari 2600. Super Mario RPG perfectly represents the ubiquity and dominance, with Nintendo taking creative risks to make it even more established. It's more established properties that feel relevant and fresh to contemporary audiences. By the end of the SNES era, Nintendo had a well-deserved sense of confidence. In some ways, though, that is where the end began. Super Mario RPG also offered the last glimpse of Mario and his amazing friends before Super Mario 64 changed how audiences saw the franchise later that year. The pre-rendered animations showcased how far the SNES had gone since Super Mario World, officially catapulted Nintendo into the 16-bit era, and along with Donkey Kong Country, served a precursor for Nintendo visually revamping its growing catalog of classic properties. After Super Mario RPG, it was all 3D, most of the time. However, Nintendo quickly found that PlayStation was a more worthy competitor in that new arena. Indeed, Sony would take the RPG crown from the following console generation, as Square Enix turned their respective attention developing titles for the original PlayStation, including 1997's Final Fantasy VII and its subsequent sequels, 1999's Legend of Mana and Chrono Cross, and 2000's Dragon Quest VII, just to name a handful on the PSX. After the SNES era, Nintendo would still enjoy success in the RPG space, most notably the Pokemon franchise. However, its significant accomplishments in the genre were considered fewer and further between. Titles like 1998's Quest 64 failed to connect with gamers in a lasting way, while Nintendo's hold over the industry steadily began to slip until the launch of the Wii. I remember that. People thought Nintendo was dead. The closest thing Nintendo has seen to an RPG resurgence outside of Pokemon was the company finally bringing Fire Emblem and Xenoblade Chronicles successfully to Western audiences, but still began a far cry from its dominance in the genre in the 90s. The lasting Super Mario RPG legacy. With the combination of Super Mario RPG's memorable pre-rendered animation style and turn-based combat, it wouldn't be replicated by Nintendo in 27 years. It is by no means the last RPG starring Mario. In the following generation, Mario took on a 2.5D appearance with the integral Paper Mario game for the Nintendo 64 in 2000. Spawning its own Paper Mario retained the timed action moves in the midst of turn-based combat as it followed its own expansion into the Super Mario franchise. On Nintendo's handheld console, Mario & Luigi series featured a more traditional art style, while providing its own RPG combat. The series began in 2003 with Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance, and also included the time-based action mechanics introduced by Super Mario RPG, Mario & Luigi, or Super Mario RPG. Mario & Luigi developer Alpha Dream was founded by Super Mario RPG Chihiro Fujioka, attending for the visible similarities in its subsequent projects. Beyond sales numbers, Super Mario RPG has stood the test of time, better than its similarly well received SNES RPG counterparts, Chrono Trigger and the Breath of Fire. Being inevitably linked to the Super Mario franchise, and has steadily helped with this, with the game serving as something of a gateway for RPG novices into the genre. Square's library. Square would quietly become partner with Sony moving forward, with Super Mario RPG as the ultimate parting between Square and Nintendo. This, coupled with complicated licensing due to Square's subsequent partnerships, led to Nintendo not revisiting major elements from the game, and even not re-releasing the title for many years after its debut. That inaccessibly gave Super Mario RPG a lasting mystique among the Nintendo flagship character's extensive pantheon of games. It was the best of two all-time great worlds, yet remained shockingly elusive. Super Mario RPG provided that Mario could have been a narrative-driven adventure that strayed from the Super Mario franchise's platforming roots. Prior to this, Mario had appeared in spin-off titles before, but either in sports and arcade games like Super Mario Kart, Wrecking Crew, or cameo appearances like the referee in Punch-Out. Super Mario RPG was a perfect synthesis of what made SNES such a masterpiece of console. By all accounts, the upcoming remake captures the things that made the game special and allowed a new generation of gamers to experience its brilliance. If nothing else, it's great to see the game rejoin the modern age and remind us of a truly special era. Is this a full remake or is this a new game? It's getting a full remake on the Nintendo Switch. That'll be exciting. Unfortunately, I don't have a Switch, so I probably won't be playing it, but I will be watching Let's Plays online and watching reviews on it. I love watching this stuff anyways. So exceptionally interesting.